Welcome. Here we are. For whatever reason you missed the lesson, whether you missed me or you were not in school, or maybe you just want a second chance to get a look at today's lesson, here it is. We are in Chapter 2 talking about solving equations with absolute value. So remember that absolute value means that it is that distance from zero. So because of that, the value of something in the absolute value bars will never be negative because distance is never going to be negative. Okay, so the first type of problems you will see are just evaluation problems. So in this one, they're going to give you a value for n. You're going to plug it in and simplify. So when you simplify with the absolute values, you just have to remember that you kind of treat them like parentheses, which means you're going to simplify everything inside of the absolute value and then take the absolute value of it, so which is always going to be the positive value. So right here in this one, we've got 8 plus the absolute value of 1 minus 2 times 5. 2 times 5 is 10. Then 1 minus 10 in there is going to be a negative 9 value, but an absolute value of negative 9 is 9, so 8 plus 9 will be 17 for your overall value. All right, this second one over here, now we have the variable a, so just substituting in, we've got 2 minus 7 in the absolute value bars plus 15. So let's simplify. 2 minus 7 just gives us a negative 5. Plus 15, the value of negative 5, the absolute value of negative 5 is 5, and 5 plus 15 will give you 20. All right, so that's just evaluating expressions. But we are also going to show you how we deal with absolute value when we have an equation. So remember, the absolute value, if they just gave you an equation like this, the absolute value of something is 10, you would know that that d either is a positive 10 or a negative 10, because those are the two numbers that have the absolute value of 10. Okay, so we're going to transfer that into an equation. Take a look at this first one right here. We have an absolute value of 3n minus 4. The whole expression is in there, equals 8. Well, if we think about this, if we're doing algebra, we would take 3 times some number and subtract 4. We'd get that answer, and then when we take the absolute value, it would be 8. In other words, if we have 3 times some unknown minus 4, it might have been, before the absolute value, it might have been a positive 8. But before that absolute value, 3h, minus 4 may have actually given you a negative 8, and before you take the absolute value. So really, there's two possible outcomes. This right here could be a positive 8, or it could be a negative 8, because both of those values would give you the absolute value of 8. So we take this equation and we make it two, one with a positive answer and one with a negative answer, because we have no way of knowing which one of those we had. So we have two possible answers. Solve each one. So we're going to add 4, which is 12, and divide by 3. The first possible value for h could have been 4, because 3 times 4 is 12. When you subtract 4, you get a positive 8, and the absolute value of positive 8 is 8. But we're going to do the other one as well, add 4, which would be a negative 4, and this is kind of ugly, but we're okay. H is negative 4/3, or negative 1 1/3. So, not ideal, but it is a possible answer, because it could have been that fraction. Now, this is probably one of the ugliest answers, so we're going to do a few more. It's going to be a little easier. But we are going to plot both of these answers on this number line. So a positive 4 is simple, right there on the number line. Negative 1 1/3 is just going to be right here and a little bit past, about right there. And that's how we plot them, just those two numbers. Okay, let's try it on the next one. We've got the absolute value of 2x minus 1 is 7, which means we could have gotten 2x minus 1 could have yielded a positive 7, and 2x minus 1 could have given you a negative 7 prior to taking the absolute value. So we've got two outcomes. We're going to add 1. 2x equals 8, which means when we divide by 2, x could have been 4. Okay, over here, add 1, and 2x equals negative 6. And when we divide, x could have also been negative 3. So here's your two possible answers for x that both would have given you a positive 7 after you took the absolute value. We just plot them both, and 4, and you're good. Do the last one. I'm going to not talk through this one, see if you can't do it on your own. Actually, I do have to talk through this one. Notice anything? Well, the absolute value of some number minus 6, and when we take the absolute value gives you, wait a minute, is it ever going to give you a negative answer when we take the absolute value? The answer to that question is no. So when you get an equation where you have the absolute value all by itself and it's equaling a negative number, that is not possible because the absolute value will never give you a negative number. Even if it's negative before you start, after you take the absolute value, it has to be positive. So the answer for that is simply a no solution. You write no solution, and obviously you can't graph that one. Okay, on to the bottom down here, we have a word problem. So take note of this word problem because this one gives you an equation, but there's a couple on the back that won't. So we're talking temperature. The outside temperature is 74 degrees, give or take 6. So solve the absolute value of S minus 74 equals 6 to find the maximum and minimum temperatures. Now, I know you can probably reason this, well, it could be 6 less than that or 6 greater than that, but remember, that's not the point. The point of this lesson is to explain how we set up this equation. So here's my hint for you. Here's the desired value, or the goal, if you will. Notice where that is, because something minus the actual where it's supposed to be, that has to be either more than 6 or less than 6. So the absolute value of 6. So this one says, whenever they say, oh, plus or minus, or could be 6 more or 6 less, that's the one it's going to equal, because that means it could be a positive 6 or a negative 6. And if we're talking about how far something is away, that's a difference. That's subtraction. So set this up. We have our two equations, S minus 74 equals 6, and S minus 74 equals negative 6. We're going to add 74. And S could be 80 or 74. S could actually be as low as 68. So your minimum is 68 degrees Fahrenheit, and your maximum is going to be 80 degrees Fahrenheit. And you will have questions like this on your assignment, on your worksheet today. Take a look over here on this challenge. Take a peek at this challenge. Let me get this where it's supposed to be for you guys. Take a look. That looks pretty complicated. Not only do we have an absolute value bracket in there, if you will, but we've got a 3 being multiplied out front, and we've got a plus 4. So when you get something like this, the first thing you have to do is use your algebra to get just the absolute value part alone. In other words, we're going to subtract 4. So now we got the absolute value of x plus 1 times 3 equals 6. Then we are going to divide by 3. So we just have x plus 1 in the absolute value equals 2. Now we know that this value right in here either gave you a positive 2 or negative 2. And you can write your two equations. X plus 1 equals 2, or x plus 1 equals negative 2. So x is either 1 or negative 3. You're going to have some questions like that on your assignment as well. So make sure you solve for your absolute value part, and then you can set up your two equations. All right, let's look at the word problems on the back side. And we are talking ice cream. Ice cream. All right, it says ice cream should be stored at 7 degrees Fahrenheit with allowance for 5 degrees higher or lower. Write and solve an equation to find the maximum and minimum temperatures. So the desired temperature is 7, but it could be 5 higher or 5 lower. In other words, the difference between the actual temperature and the desired temperature, the difference, that value can either be a positive 5 or a negative 5. So it equals 5. And then you can just solve your two. It could give you this. So add 7. So x could be 12 or as low as 2. So minimum 2 degrees Fahrenheit, maximum 12 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay. Check out the next one. The average temperature, January temperature in a Canadian city is 1 degree Fahrenheit. The actual January temperature for that city may be about 5 degrees warmer or colder, but this is the actual temp, which means the difference between the actual temp could be 5 or negative 5. So we've got the actual temperature minus this one could give you a positive 5 or a negative 5. So the absolute value of t minus 1 equals 5. Set up your two equations. Could be 6. Could be negative 4. So a maximum of 6 degrees Fahrenheit, a minimum of negative 4 degrees Fahrenheit. All right. Now, they will also give you a couple questions where they give you the graph of the solution. So you know that the answer you got was 11 or 19. So here's how you find that. You know it's going to be, I'm going to count how far between here. And so over here in this tip, they actually say, 11 plus 19 is 30, so divide that by 2, you get 15. That's just telling you that 15 is your midpoint. Take a look at this. The distance from 11 to 15 is 4, and the distance between 5 and 19 is 4. That is what your absolute value can equal, because it's either 4 less or 4 more. And what's your goal? 15. Your midpoint between your two solutions is your desired number. Okay, and you can either be 4 less or 4 more. In other words, if they take a number, how far away are they from 15? So the difference could be a positive 4 or a negative 4, meaning the absolute value of something minus 15 needs to be 4. There you go. So 15 was the midpoint. On this one down here, same idea. We go from 16 to 26. Hey, I don't even have to do my math in any fancy way. That's 10, right? What's the midpoint of 10? 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 21 is our midpoint. It can be 5 below, or 5 above. So we've got something minus 21 can be either 5 below or 5 above. That's basically your assignment. They're going to give you a blue worksheet, hopefully, or you already have that already. And good luck. Watch again if you need to. And I think you're going to be ready to go.